It is a cliche to often say that my guest today or my speaker today needs no introduction. But the person we have on this season finale episode of The Road Less Taken truly needs no introduction. He has been a champion and flown the flag of India high for many decades now, having achieved several summits of excellence. He won an Arjuna Award at the age of 16. He is one of the few people in India to have won all the 3 Padma Awards and was the first sports person, in fact, to win the Padma Vibhushan. And he was the first Indian to win the Rajiv Gandhi Khel Ratna Award. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Venki Srinivasan, your host on this episode of The Road Less Taken, the weekly web series from Nexus Consulting, where we are in conversation with people who've made unconventional career choices and excelled at them. We have one of India's greatest sports persons with us. Please welcome as our guest for this episode of TRLT, Viswanathan Anand. Hi Anand, and thank you so much for being on The Road Less Taken. Privileged to have you here. Very warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much.
Great, and you're here right on the back of a very significant victory for Team India in the Olympiad, and I noticed that you had said that it was fairly significant for you as well.
Yes, I mean, India has never won an Olympiad before, and this year, due to the unusual circumstances, the whole event happened online.
Right.
Which meant that we could have even larger teams than we normally do.
Okay.
More reserves and things like that. And FIDE made what I think is a very good change, which is they started to allow the female boards and the junior boards in the same team.
Okay.
And instead of having a separate women's Olympiad, for instance.
Right.
And I always felt this was good for India because India has a good bench. We have great women players, we have great juniors.
Okay.
And in fact, our team was... I think 3rd highest rated.
Okay. Yeah.
I might be wrong. No, but we in the final in our group, China was higher rated, and then in the final, Russia was higher rated.
Right.
But otherwise, we were doing quite well.
Fantastic, and congratulations on that. I'm going to, however, take you back to your days when you first came across a chessboard. I think at the age of 5 or 6, and started playing in Chennai, and then moved to the Philippines and then came back to Chennai. But you were a true pioneer because there was no one to really look up to. India had not had any world beaters at the international level in chess. So as an impressionable kid growing up, who did you look up to for inspiration, and who was your idol?
I was lucky as things went because I'll just take you through the lucky bits, the serendipitous bits. I was born in a family where my mother played chess and her family played chess.
Okay.
So my uncles, her younger brothers, and all played chess at university. And so there was some chess culture in. This doesn't seem big now, but imagine 40 years ago, if you didn't meet someone in your immediate circle who knew chess, chances are you gave up very quickly. I mean, you couldn't access the internet or something.
Yeah.
So it was a totally different era. And even I think in Higginbotham's, for instance, there was one chess book that my sister happened to stumble on. So it was a totally different era. Then the second thing is, I would have to say that in India, admittedly what you said is true, but in India, Chennai had the best concentration of chess lovers and chess players in the country.
Okay.
So, yes, I could have, it would have been helpful to have been born in another country, but being in India, I was almost in the best location. And third, we had the Soviet House of Culture, and they had given a room as a chess club to all the chess fans in the city as a way of promoting the game.
Right.
And that was perfect for me. I used to go there and play. So I was lucky as things went. And on top of that, when I went to the Philippines, I got a chance to interact with the Torres, and I'd go to the venue of the Cup of Kochna match and so on.
Right.
So again, that wasn't something I could have expected, but my father suddenly got an Asian Bank project there, and he went there for a year. And so there were lucky breaks, and I think the Tal Chess Club was as good a chess community as any. I mean, real chess lovers, which is the main thing.
Right.
There were no formal coaching or things like that. But these are guys, every Saturday and Sunday, you knew they'd be sitting there and playing. These
Right.
people love.
Right. Right. But the other interesting thing I read was that you also kind of dabbled in playing tennis for some time when you were very young, and your idol was John McEnroe. I cannot imagine two more extreme personalities in temperament than you and McEnroe. So tell us about that.
Yes, a lot of people are surprised by that, but I think it's strange to admire people who are just like yourself. I mean, often you admire people who do things totally differently.
Exactly the opposite.
But anyway, yes, I was. I was in. My father was in the railways, so I had access to the railway club. You could play tennis, table tennis, badminton, swimming. You know, the usual club sports. And I played a fair amount of tennis there. Then at some point, I joined this tennis class and started turning up there. The same thing when I was in the Philippines. I mean, it's well known that in the Philippines, I played a lot of chess. But what is not so well known is that in the Philippines, I used to go for tennis coaching as well.
Okay.
So I guess at that stage, it wasn't totally clear. And my parents' attitude was, well, whatever you like doing, just do it. But I think very quickly, it was clear to me that my tennis wasn't progressing, and in chess, I was going very fast.
Very far ahead, yeah. But you didn't face the classic conundrum of, should I go towards this career in sport, or should I go towards this classic education, typical 80s growing up engineering, doctor kind of route? Because I think by the time you had finished school, you were already a Grandmaster, right?
Yes, I always say I use the same explanation. I was lucky. I became national champion the year of my 10th standard exams.
Okay.
I became world junior champion and Grandmaster just a few months after finishing my 12th standard exams.
Right.
And by the time I finished my college, I was in the top 10 of the world.
Right.
So the junctures, the moments when you sit and think, okay, now I really got to think which way I'm going to go. For me, the doubt and the hesitation was simply not there.
Right.
So I feel that again, my timing was impeccable, and that you obviously can't control.
As always,
so it's nice. But yes, I was working hard. A friend of mine once mentioned something funny. He said, chess players, you don't choose to be a professional chess player. You choose not to be one. His point was those who are really passionate of the game, that's what they want to do.
Right.
But then there comes a moment when they have to choose some other career.
Right.
And I was fortunate not having to make that step.
Right. But all this intense chess playing during school, college, how did that impact dynamics at these institutions? Did you make a lot of friends? Were you hardly ever in school and college because you were out playing all the time? I
was fairly regular till about the ninth standard. Because till then I was playing locally, and that meant that in my school reunions, it's clear that I'm the one with the fewest stories, because there's so many. There were days when they seemed to have gone out and had fun, and I was somewhere at some tournament. So there's that. But still, I was close to my classmates, and I knew them reasonably well. It wasn't until the ninth standard that I really started to travel a lot.
Okay.
And after that, the academics did suffer. I was doing well, but I passed comfortably my 10th and 12th.
Of course.
And university as well, I got my BCom.
Right.
Not with soaring grades, but I got it. And but I was literally there for maximum a month and a half, if you add up all the dates that I was at school or college. So right. It was extreme. But, by the 10th, my name was coming in the papers and so on. So also the school made an effort to help me, and some of the teachers would take time after the class to guide me a little bit, and I managed to cope.
Yeah. Now I want to come back to this point of this non-distracted focus that you have. I'll come to that a little bit later, but I want to ask you about chess itself as a sport. It is obviously an individual sport, and a lot of people think of it as a sedentary sport in some sense. But I know that for you, it is as much a team sport as it's an individual sport, because you have a retinue of your seconds and Aruna who are integral part of your team, and it's physical to the extent that you do keep yourself fit and work out and so on, right? So tell us about this whole preparation bit that has been happening in your career for the last 30 odd years?
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point because it has a lessened over the years, but an incredible number of people have come to me and said, okay, training in chess, but what do you train? You just make a move, right? And it's hard to convey that. But chess is principally an individual sport. In the end, all the team does is to get you ready to sit there, and there you're alone. And there is no depending on anyone after that point.
Right.
But yes, it is a team sport, and yes, it's quite physical in the sense that it takes a huge physical toll. And if you're not fit, your performance suffers.
Right.
Now, it's not like I have to do one muscle group or the other, but you need to be able to handle the tension and the stress of long duration. And the team aspect is very important because the workload eventually becomes huge.
Right.
And you need to get some expert advice from people in other areas. So somebody may specialize in some part of the game that you're not very good at. And so there's an element of learning all the skills of the team and bringing it together and making it, being able to deliver it at the board. So while it's an individual game, I'm forced to learn a lot from other people.
Right.
And I think that's where the team comes in, because even the team, they can do great work, but if they can't convey it to the player in a way that the player can then easily play it at the board, they're not doing a very good job.
Right.
So there is that team effort, but it's focused to the individual. I mean, I always say that seconds have the most difficult job because after they've done the work and the player that goes to the game, the result for them depends on what he does. I mean, if he doesn't badly, there's nothing they can do. So it's very frustrating for them, if they've done all the work and the player forgot to check that one thing and he can't do it, something like that.
Right.
So we spent a lot of time on this actually. Always the period going up to the match was rehearsals where people would tell me, look, I did this. Did you check it? Are you familiar with this? Are you familiar with that? Will you be able to? Because at that point, the only thing that matters is what I deliver at the board.
Right, right. And yet all of the strategy and planning, might come to naught because you go onto the board and your opponent's suddenly going to make a move that you potentially haven't planned, or mid-game something changes that you haven't planned. In your experience, what percentage of games have happened like that, which have been like a complete surprise?
Well, complete surprise is a small fraction, I would guess. But think about it this way. I am doing some work. I'm doing some secret work, and I hope to catch my opponent in that area.
Right.
But my opponent is also looking at the same published material, my games, his games, other people's games,
right,
and trying to do everything to avoid falling into my trap.
Right.
And so people are generally fairly good at not falling headlong into someone's trap.
Okay.
By this, I mean that if I have prepared 10 traps and in order of importance, the more likely scenario is someone might fall into the 9th one, not the first one.
Not the first one.
So it's very hard to get someone right where you want them.
Right.
But, and because both sides are actively trying not to fall into the other person's thing, invariably what happens is the third thing, that we try so hard to avoid each other, is that we both stumble into something unknown. Right. And then you have to start fighting.
Right.
And really, it wouldn't be a sport if it didn't turn out like that.
Yes. Of course.
But the vast majority of the games, you end up having to do quite a lot of work at board. I mean, it's a myth that you can ever get a game where you don't have to do any work at board, at the board. At least a small percentage you'll have to do there. And you should consider yourself very lucky or very happy if you manage to get to move 20 and only then have to think, almost.
Right. Right. This, you kind of reached the top or the pinnacle. I mean, multiple summits you've scaled. You became GM when you were 18, and that was 32 years ago, right? And you've managed to sustain this pursuit of excellence, if I can call it that, over all these years. What keeps you going? What keeps you going day in, day out to keep doing this? And what are some of the things that you do on a regular basis to make sure your focus stays?
I think till I got my world championship title, that was clearly the thing that kept me going. So till the year 2000, when I won the title, I had this feeling that this was eluding me, and you just kept going back for more. You didn't even think, oh God, another 3-year cycle. You just thought, well, of course I have to be in it, and you didn't even have to think about it.
Right.
In that sense, I would say most of my career, the motivation has been fairly automatic. There was always some big title ahead that you had to plan for.
Right.
When I became world champion for the second time, then I started to face the problem of motivation fairly heavily, in the sense that I was extremely motivated for the matches.
Right.
But after 3 months of being with my team in preparing for a match and then playing the match, I found that none of us had the bandwidth not only to do more work, but even to be with each other.
Right.
And so the team would just dissipate. I mean, we would all go to our homes and just, it's not that the friendship didn't survive, but it's just that you really want to be away from everyone.
Yeah, yeah.
The intensity, and you know, for 3 months, as long as the goal is in front of you, everyone gets the job done. But then when they catch the flight back home, they're so relieved not to have to be with the team and to go back into their own little worlds. And in fact, this was a problem in the second time when I won my world title in 2007. I think defending it in 2008, still my non-world championship performance was quite high. But after that, it started to suffer quite a bit. And then it's a clear problem of motivation, is that having done the big thing, it's just difficult to keep on pushing yourself at the same level. And I didn't manage that very well. Also, the problem was FIDE had just reunified.
Right.
And the way they reunified is to compromise with everyone. And so there was a backlog of matches that were just part of that compromise deal. So I played the World Championship in Mexico.
Right.
Then I played Kramnik in 2008, because the deal was he would only agree to come and join the previous championship is if he had a fallback championship.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. I played that. And then Topolov's condition for playing the original reunification match was that he shouldn't be left out completely. So he got to parachute in, and then I had to play him.
Then you had to play him.
And so, and by this point, the rest of the world had been waiting for so long that the cycle where Gelfand qualified landed again.
Right.
And I played 3 matches in the space of 4 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And at this point, it started to feel a bit ridiculous. And then I play again. The next cycle landed on me, and I played Carlsen right away in 2013.
Yeah.
So not only there were a lot of world championships, they were, backing up on me. And so that was a period when my motivation suffered, and I had to push myself quite hard even to compete in some tournaments. I coped well in some years, other years I did it badly. But after 2013, in a way, the one good thing was that having the World Championship removed from my head, then I could actually focus on these other tournaments, and then my performance recovered in these in tournaments and things like that. But I think inevitably you come to an age when you think you're not driven by pure ambition. You just think, well, what is my contribution to the game? What is my legacy? How am I going to? What is it I enjoy about the game? And I found that. Recently, I enjoy the traveling, I enjoy playing. And this has to be said, that there is a minimum amount of motivation built in, which is that you simply want to play chess, you want to travel, you want to compete in that thing. And then that extra level of motivation, which really pushes you to achieve something, that is on and off.
Okay. But through your playing career, I mean, like any sportsman at the highest level, there have been big wins and there have been defeats, right? So every time you come back to your hotel room or your home after things having not gone your way, how would you kind of bring yourself back into focus, especially when you're playing like these series of matches like in a championship? And has that changed over the years? Are you much more chilled out now if you lose as opposed to say 25 years back?
No, I think the desire to punch yourself in the face, the anger with yourself for doing something that you believe that you're above. I mean, you just think, come on, I'm better than this.
Right.
And that feeling is persistent. I mean, I'll never get rid of it.
Yeah.
But if you've experienced something often enough, you realize that life has its own cycles and rhythms, and you can't obsess about it. I mean, I make a distinction between tournaments where I have a game tomorrow. So let's say I play a ridiculous game today, but I have a game tomorrow. Then I know that obsessing about today's game and going to tomorrow's game without having made some sort of mental break between the two, then performance tomorrow will suffer. On the days I manage this, it typically means I have a good night's sleep. Helped maybe by going to the gym and running for 2 or 3 kilometers just to get really tired. Then you shower, then you have dinner, and you're quite drowsy and you fall asleep. Right. And then you wake up and you realize you've moved on. Okay. But it's not 100%. There are days where, despite my best efforts, I'm tossing and turning all night because the positions of the previous game are coming into my head. Oh, I did that. Why couldn't I do that? Now it's obvious to me that I could have done better. All those things are there.
Right.
My response is, if I manage to focus on the next game, then well and good, I do that. When I don't, then I go there in a slightly pessimistic, fatalistic frame of mind. But you still try to play a good game and see if that works out, or you try to be very conservative, play for a draw, because normally when you finish a game, then it puts quite some distance between the previous game. Doesn't feel like yesterday; it feels like a week back.
Right.
And then once you've got that space, you recover a bit to go on. And the same thing after tournaments. If it's a bad tournament, I come home. The first 3 days, I don't even go to a chess website, or I don't look at a chessboard.
Right.
And this period, by the way, can be longer. I've had stretches where we had timed a holiday. So in 2006, I had quite a disastrous result in the Olympiad and disappointing result in Sofia. So then we had planned to come back, and I mean, before the thing, we had booked a holiday, one of our dream holidays for our 10th anniversary. And so we went ahead. We went to South Africa, Zambia, had some lovely time. And really during that 2 weeks that we were there, I did not open a chessboard or think about a chess position. And then when I came back, I found that the slate had been wiped clean. So the typical methods are like that. But fitness is important. Having hobbies is important. I mean, I always say the brain is the one thing that doesn't rest by not working. It rests by doing something else.
Right. So what else do you do to chill out? Do you still listen to the 70s, 80s rock and pop that you used to listen to earlier?
I'm afraid so. I'm afraid so. And but maybe you can call it comfort music or something.
Yeah, it is comfort music. Like
there's a bit of that, and or you watch short series because again, when you're watching something with Aruna, we need to find something that at least some compromise, which both of us want to watch. So there's a bit of that, but that's again a very nice thing that at night before we go to sleep, we watch something for 10 or 15 minutes, and that helps again to push the thing. But it's not like I've come to any sort of idea about how I should cope. I just keep on coping and hope that it works. I mean, disappointment really lives with you all your life.
And with all this travel, living in living outside the country for many years, etc., has the Madras diet of Viswanathan Anand changed? Or is your comfort food still local South Indian Tamil food, or has your cuisine expanded substantively?
I would say both. I mean, I have my comfort food in every cuisine.
Okay.
And depending on where you are and the circumstances, it can vary. But yeah, there's something about, in fact, just yesterday, Aruna made a spectacular rasam and just drinking it, and it felt great. So South Indian food is something I crave, but not that much. I'm fairly used to going long periods without it. And I crave other cuisines as well. So when I'm in a big city and I get a chance to try this and that, that's part of the joy of it.
Yeah, nice. I want to now take you back to a comment I think you made some months back when you said the chessboard has finally been filled up with India getting its 64th GM. right?
Right.
You were number one, and that's come a full chessboard, and you began that revolution in some sense. What's your take on this whole, the whole young brigade of Indian chess coming together? And you commented on it in the initial part of the interview, saying India's junior strength, the bench strength is very strong. So take us through that. How do you see that evolving?
I mean, really in India, what has evolved nicely is this ecosystem. So already in the 90s, we had the first generation of strong players a lot of players were emerging. The participation levels at tournaments were going up. The numbers were big. And then this first wave started coaching academies and schools, which then propagated further in developing the next generation. And slowly the number of grandmasters is also going up.
Right.
I mean, we're already past that chessboard.
Yeah.
They're flooding the outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at every stage, you see it becoming more self-sustaining. I mean, now already we have excellent coaching abilities. A lot of stuff is on the internet. Big audiences, online audiences for our games. And I think the final piece is just to have excellent tournaments, good sponsors, developing the sport at that level. I mean, it is there, but I think that has to keep growing. But I would say that right now, it wouldn't surprise me if we had a world champion in the next 10 years, because we really have the strength. And it's hard to pinpoint one player and say, because you don't know how they're going to develop.
Yeah, of course.
But I feel that we have the numbers and the talent and the ecosystem, if you like. And I'm quite confident of the future of Indians in chess. In a way, this Olympiad was a reaffirmation of it, because there's nothing to predict. It's a fairly unpredictable format.
Yeah.
But when you have a good team, your odds are good.
Right.
You know, it's like 3 numbers in the dice favor you. Well, then your odds are only half. So
right. Yeah. Right. But does the whole coaching ecosystem in chess work the way it does in other individual sports, like say a badminton or a tennis, where you have this one expert coach and he's handpicking players, and then they're going through this very intense regimen of training before they're able to succeed at the international level?
Yes, but the thing is, actually, the value of knowledge in chess has become quite relative, because once upon a time, the knowledge that a group of people in one town or thing which they possessed, and I'm describing the Soviet Union, obviously.
Right, yeah.
So the bunch of coaches that were in Moscow, their level was so high, and they were all interacting with each other and with the best players, who would then try everything out, they said, in the best tournaments and come back. And this, it was a fairly close circle. So the rest of the world only got a glimpse of that when many of them, after the Soviet Union collapsed, many of them immigrated to live in other countries and started to teach that they were exposed. Now the computer is leveling everything.
Right.
And so what was a good approach 2 years ago already feels slightly dated today. I mean, the pace is very fast. But at the same time, it's available to everyone. And it's very hard for somebody to say, well, we have built up all this expertise in this area, and that's a huge barrier to entry. It isn't like that. Talent can emerge from unlikely places. But still, the thing is, we have a community of people who are all interacting with each other, exchanging ideas. So definitely there's some value there. I don't want to say it's not there. It's just that it's not as huge as it was 50, 60 years ago, because of the role of the computer in leveling everything.
Right. And in that sense, I find this dynamic fascinating. Maybe it's a bit of a naive question, but you encourage all these youngsters, and they seek inspiration from you. You give them tips, you formally, informally coach them, you bring them up to speed, but you're essentially building your own competition in some sense, right? Because you're also actively playing. And even at the topmost levels, people who've competed with you are today kind of helping you when you are kind of playing a very big match. I don't think this dynamic really exists in any other sport in this way.
That's true, but chess playing has always had this informal side to it, where people can speak and exchange ideas. And it might exist in other sports where somebody says, we tried this or we tried that. They may not be a formal coach, but the informal exchange in chess is very important.
Right.
because that's where you get the bulk of your ideas.
Mm.
But you then hone those ideas very well with a specialized team.
Mm.
But you're right. I think you're referring to my match in 2010 when I played Topalov and Kramnik helped me, for instance, and Carlsen came for sparring. Some of it is mutual benefit. I mean, Carlsen came in 2008 and 10 because he thought, well, I'll spar with Anand, but I'll get some insight into him as well. And then a few years later. And I was taking the bargain. Well, his work will be useful to me now, and he is not yet my competitor, but he will be in a few years. But we'll worry about that when we get to it. In fact, it did come back to haunt me a little bit, and as it did for Kasparov. Yeah. I mean, Kasparov hired Kramnik as his trainer in 1995 against me. And probably at that point, he thought that, well, I'll worry about Kramnik when I have to worry about Kramnik, but right now, let me win this match. Yeah. But it was a mistake because what happened, and Kramnik, I think, alluded to it at some points. He said, I sat with Kasparov and I realized his preparation is so inconsistent. Some areas it's excellent, some areas he doesn't even look at. And I would try to tell him, but you forgot to check this, and he'd say, let's do this. And it's so impulsive. And I think there's a value in seeing I mean, it's one thing to deduce this from his games, but it's another thing to sit there next to him while he just skips over inter areas and you think, what is going on? And I think it really made a big difference for Kramnik because the next few years he was the one player who was not intimidated by Kasparov at all. At all, You know, he just went hammer and tongs at him. And Kasparov never had a plus score against Kramnik all his life. So that tells you something. Yeah. So some of these things turned out to be mistakes, but it's short-sightedness. I mean, I'm not saying Carlsen wouldn't have developed later if it hadn't been for me, but maybe I gave him that extra chip. And the same thing, and Kasparov actually gave him a big one because Kramnik was not a sparring partner. He was there for the whole 3 months. Right. So he got a lot of insight into Kasparov, and well, Kasparov paid for it in 2000. So. Nice. Right. So this collaborative competition is a very interesting dynamic. Tell us in all your career, one of your big strengths, has been Aruna, who's kind of been with you through thick and thin, and I know there are several wonderful anecdotes. I love the 2706 ELO rating one. That I think is just terrific. In fact, we put it as a question in a quiz that we did recently, right? Okay. Talking about your book, but tell us how this, what role Aruna has played, and how important has it been for you all these years? Right. I mean, I think when I was young, till I was 17, my mother was coming with me to every tournament, but that was because I was very young. Right. And then for about 7 or 8 years, I was generally traveling alone. Right. During this period, I was managing a lot of things by myself. And without anybody to give you any feedback, you don't realize that there are many things you could do better. There are many things you shouldn't be diverting any energy to at all. And in 95, especially, the shortcomings of this approach became evident to me because when I was playing the match with Kasparov, I was also booking hotels. I was also doing this. I mean, I was heavily distracted. Right. I mean, it's not like I married her for that purpose, but what happened was we got married the next year. Right. And then within a few months, she said, look, why don't I help you in your public relations? Because, I was working in advertising and I have some clear skills and I'm with you. So why don't I do that? So she... slowly, and it's not like we had a discussion about roles. It doesn't work like that. But over time, it evolved that she started to take on many things. I mean, initially, for instance, obviously I respected that she was in advertising. She was very good. But when she started taking over the communication with the organizers and other players and so on, I felt awkward. I mean, my first reaction was, but many of them are my friends and we just discuss things informally. I don't know how they'll take to suddenly you writing to them and so on. But so there's always a period of adjustment. But I think in the end, it transitioned pretty smoothly. And I would say the biggest impact she had is that coming slowly to the world of chess, she was traveling everywhere and she got her insights into the world of chess are as good as anyone. I mean, not the technical aspects, but she understands what makes chess player tick and doesn't. And so over the years, she's someone I can confide with. She's someone to whom there are many things that don't have to be explained.
Right. Right.
A confidant as well. And in that sense, we were very close, and she was able to take on this role. And then later on, she somehow just evolved into my manager. And this meant that more and more I could get into my bubble before a chess tournament and only think about the chess, and I didn't think about anything else.
Right.
And that was critical, I would say, in my career, because in my second wave, I was able to do that extremely well. And a lot of the big matches, I think part of the success is that I was able to focus completely.
Right, right.
And besides, I think dealing with minor things, you think they're minor things, but
they are
taking psychological and they are distracting you. And at some level, that thing, it may not be a pleasant conversation, and you come back to your chessboard and it's whirring in your head.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to be able to cocoon yourself.
Yeah. So tell me, on a much lighter vein, in all these years that you've traveled, you've been to so many places. I'm sure several people, you must be recognized everywhere, and so on. What is the funniest anecdotal incident that you've had in terms of this kind of interaction, recognition, and so on, anywhere in the world?
I think the funniest ones are simply where people either don't recognize me, but they have heard of me,
right.
And they think they have recognized me, or they're not sure, and those are the funniest stories. My train story is quite well known.
That's well known.
I won't repeat that. There was a sequel, which is that once I was in Chennai airport.
Okay.
And somebody was looking at me and looking away, looking at me, looking away, and I could see that. Typically, you feel that okay, he feels that he knows me from somewhere, but he can't quite place me. And then later on, his eyes lit up, and I thought, okay, now he's got it. And he came to me and said, "Sir, unga karasi padam neenga super irundinga. You were great in your last movie." And well, I couldn't help smiling, because that's a typical thing. Right? People just think, if I know him, he must be an actor.
Actor, yeah.
Yeah. So I called Aruna and told her about this, and she said, "Which movie?"
Yeah.
I said, "Well, I didn't ask him." She said, "Why not?" And I said, "Why would I ask him?" She said, "I want to know if he was the hero or the villain." And that happens quite often.
Right.
It's happened to me in America and so on, where the passport official looks at you and this and that. And then he says, "Chess player? Okay, you're not by any chance that Viswanathan?" And then you say yes. So
nice.
That sort of thing is always the funniest.
Nice. And now over the last 6 months, this 5 months, this non-travel and sitting at home. I know you kind of came back into the country sometime in May, June, and you've been in Chennai since. Has it been a refreshing break, or do you miss the travel? And have chess players taken to it much better than the others, because you've been used to this whole technology element in chess for a while now?
Okay, the last question first. I think chess players have generally adapted, because a lot of chess moves very smoothly online. So it was not much of a transition that they had to make. And yes, I returned home basically May 29th. But I had to go via Bangalore, because there were no flights to Chennai. Then I did half my quarantine in Bangalore, and then flew to Chennai, and I've been here now, actually just 2 days short of 3 months.
3 months, yeah.
For me, it's been a learning experience, because last year, if you asked me, I would have said I could probably survive at home for a month. But then I would need to go near the airport and get on a plane, because I'm so used to it. And after 6 months, I can tell you, it's nowhere as traumatic as I thought it would be. So I don't mind at all. I quite enjoy being at home. What is unusual is not seeing any friends, or not being able to go to places. That is, even within the city, that feels strange. We're kind of waiting for it to resume. But on the other hand, now we see the family the whole time, and that's kind of compensated for it.
Definitely.
And
So lots more
it's
chess to
just a
tackle.
very unusual. Yes, I mean, but he's doing so many things online. He's doing chess. He's doing coding. He's able to do a lot of his practice, a lot of his art
Very nice.
online. So that's nice. So the teacher is telling certain things, and he likes to do that. Um, and but we have some fun times playing chess as well. Um, I think it's tough for him because the social contact, as you know, it's a thing. But by now, even he seems to be completely used to it because it's just this moment when you realize that something is not automatic, and then you get over it. So.
Yeah. As the last question, this is something we've been asking all our guests. What is the one thing that you would like to share as a message for people watching the show, especially young, aspiring sports persons, chess players? What is the message that you would like to leave with them as they begin their pursuit of excellence in the path that you have already laid out for them?
Mostly, I would say just practice. So in the case of chess, practice playing. Whatever walk of life, I think the same advice. Your skills can atrophy very fast if you don't rehearse. So keep rehearsing and try to set yourself small goals, because with everything so uncertain, it's nice to have some small goals that keep you focused on something. And beyond that, also don't overdo it. Right now, it's a rare chance we get to have so much free time to ourselves. And one day we'll get back to a world where we think, oh, I have no time for myself. And, let's not regret that.
Right. On that note, thank you very, very much, Anand. Thank you for spending your time and sharing your wonderful journey with us on TRLT. Absolute privilege to have you on the show, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
That, ladies and gentlemen, was the great Viswanathan Anand, taking us through his journey of becoming a world champion, sustaining a spirit of excellence over so many years, and what motivates him to go on even today. And that concludes season 1 of The Road Less Taken. We had 10 episodes in season 1 where we had 11 fabulous personalities come in and share their journeys, their motivations, their inspiration, and why they've chosen to take this path that is less taken by most of us. I hope those were inspiring, exciting, and impactful for you. All the full-length episodes as well as shorter highlights versions are available on our YouTube channel, Nexus Consulting. If you haven't subscribed, please do that. Please like and share the videos and share it with whoever you think may benefit from this. We are taking a short 2-week break. We will be back in season 2 with another wonderful lineup of guests who will all have impactful and interesting stories to share. If there's someone that you'd like to see as a guest on season 2 of The Road Less Taken, please don't hesitate to write into us on any of our social media handles, and we will certainly try to take your recommendation and get those people in as guests and have them share their journeys with all of you. So till we meet again in a couple of weeks on season 2 of The Road Less Taken, this is Venki Srinivasan on behalf of Team Nexus saying stay home, stay safe, and bye-bye.